It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, it is the unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com as we have a huge week ahead, and I don't think it even matters what's going on in Nebraska with their coaching staff. I think that this game is still what we all thought it would be, which other than Nebraska losing a couple of games, this is going to be a little bit of a test for Oklahoma, going on the road to Lincoln, Nebraska to play Nebraska Cornhuskers, a team that, yes, they just fired their coach, but they're also a team that scores a lot of points on offense. It's a hostile environment. Who knows how the fans are going to react in this game? And I think that's the biggest question. We welcome in the entire crew, Josh McQuistion, Eddie Radosevich, Bob Przbilla. I am Kerry Murdoch, and we'll start with Bob as I try and do each and every week because you are the guy. You're a beat reporter. To me, that seems to be the biggest question is, what's the emotion of this game going to be like for Nebraska, not just the fans, but the players?
Right. I mean, and that's what Brent Venables said yesterday. We heard multiple times Monday, we're expecting their best. It's game 7 whenever you go up against the Sooners. But Brent brought it to another level by saying, when your back's against the wall, when his back has been against the wall, he's produced really great results. And if Nebraska's back isn't against the wall now, then it's never going to be. So this will be a chance to sort of see any new wrinkles. Are the players are they inspired in a different way? Do they just throw caution to the wind and say, this is the game we're banking our entire season on from this point on, and we're going to give everything we got? Conversely, what if OU jumps out to an early lead? Is the quit factor, is that something that becomes part of the deal too?
Step on the throat. Got to step on the throat. Got to take out the knife and cut the throat early.
Here's my question. Is Trev Alberts playing the role of the team owner in Major League? Like where he doesn't want them to do well so he can make it easier just to get rid of Mickey Joseph at the end of the season? Like, is he going to, start making them bust to all their games and stuff?
I don't know if he would have to do too much.
I mean,
sounds mean to say.
He can do whatever he wants, but it's just easier if this team doesn't go out and win every game from here on out. Yeah. And then you have to hire Mickey.
I think that there is, an element, though, when Scott Frost did it, it gets announced on Sunday afternoon that he got fired. It's like, oh, shit. Damn it. Why'd they have to do it this week?
Yeah.
Why couldn't they wait till October 1st and
they were supposed to
let the sky keep falling the next couple of weeks?
I mean, you essentially paid $8 million for being embarrassed.
Yes.
Georgia Southern beat us. Well, we got to get rid of him now. Okay. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like to have that much money. But, I mean, even if I had a whole bunch of money, I'm like, why don't we just wait till October 1st to fire this guy instead of paying him a premium of $8 million? I know. You had to be really pissed.
Well, they reached that's the bar of Nebraska football. That's their rock bottom, is giving up almost 700 yards to Georgia Southern, letting Clay Helton basically film a WWE-type promo in front of the scoreboard and giving up, 700 yards, as I said.
The first game they've ever lost at home when they've scored 35 points. That stat was telling.
It's the most. It was the most yards. I mean, they reached rock bottom. There was no good to keep bringing Scott Frost back, and I think that you almost, I guess, in a way, that kind of tells me that there's probably some locker room issues if they said to themselves, "Yeah, we got to act now. We got to get this guy out of here."
It's a recruiting thing, as we know with the early signing period.
Sure.
The quicker you do it, the quicker you can try to bounce back and get that initial boost that any new coach gets.
Well, the thing about it is, Josh, it's like we saw that with USC last year, and yeah, they ended up pulling off a coup and getting Lincoln Riley. But everybody from the beginning said USC didn't need to fire him that early. It wasn't necessary to do that. I still don't know what benefits it gave USC. I don't know what benefits it gives Nebraska, because especially a place like Nebraska where you don't have the recruiting base that a USC has. You're only hurting yourself with recruiting, aren't you? Firing a coach this early?
in a lot of ways, it's one of those things, and it's crazy, Kerry, that you mentioned the USC comparison, because obviously the fact that Clay, like USC has such a connection to what happened in Nebraska, because obviously the Clay Helton situation, and then you throw in how much this feels like what USC did last year when they hired Dante Williams, young guy, really good recruiter, much in the same vein of Mickey Joseph, a guy that's really well known and well liked within the area of that program. You know, Dante Williams in Southern California, Mickey Joseph obviously playing at Nebraska. There's a lot of connection. But it is, I also think it's kind of interesting as you look at what happened. So Stanford, beats USC last year. Then the next week, USC goes out and plays Washington State and plays easily their best game of the year, just clubs Washington State. And from then on, it's very much what, USC had been before. But that 1 week, they got a great performance. And that's what, I'm sure that's what Brent's talking about. Maybe not that example, but just like this week, OU's going to get everything Nebraska's got. Like, this is going to be probably the best game they play all year, if I was going to guess.
It's a program game.
Yeah. I mean, there's talent there, guys. Like, we know Casey Thompson can play football. We know there's some good players on that roster. There absolutely are. So
there's not talent on that defensive line, though. That's their biggest problem.
Yeah. Is it just the defensive line? I don't know. Is there talent on the defensive side of the football?
I'm just saying that you can. Everyone I've seen has run it all over Nebraska. Like they have no pass rush. I mean,
they got Mathis, and they hadn't done anything.
It's strange that a team can be so bad on the defensive line that they can't either stop the run or rush the passer. Like, that's almost impossible at a school like Nebraska.
You think you'd at least go small. Like, we're going to rush the passer, or we're going to go really large and just eat up blocks. Like, one or the other you could commit to and be serviceable at. But to be both is kind of damning. And then, we've ended maybe Northwestern's kind of good when they go and lose to Duke. Yeah. So you're like at home, no less. So I think, but Kerry, sorry, I was just kind of looking at that as we got started, and so I kind of had that on the brain. But as far as recruiting, there's two ways you can look at it. One is, you have that ability to say, you know what, hey, let's just use Malachi Coleman as a perfect example, just because he's very relevant to OU fans. They can go to him, the coaching staff, whether it's Mickey Joseph or even, people within the administration. When Malachi visits Nebraska, they can say, hey man, we know it hasn't been good enough. We're working on it. If you keep the guy, it's still this lingering idea, because, like, what are you going to tell Malachi? Like, he's gone after the year. Just bear with us. We're going to get there. Like, so you get to sell the promise and the hope of what it is. And we all know that's half of recruiting. Like, half the teams have success, so they get to say, hey, look at what we're doing. Look, this is what it looks like. This is what you want to be a part of. And then the others get to say, hey, you get to be part of us going to where those teams are. So it's an easy way to argue either way. I'm one of those people, like, once it's not going anywhere, get it done with. Don't waste time about it. Now, I probably could bide my time for 3 weeks for $7.5 million. But beyond that, I mean, if there's not a clear monetary gain, just rip the Band-Aid off. Be done with it.
I think walking out of the stadium Saturday night, every Nebraska fan knew that something was coming. I talked to our buddy Sean Callahan, and it's just amazing to see. You think back to the night before the Dublin game, and they're having that pep rally with 5,000 Nebraska fans in the middle of, basically what is the Central Park in Dublin to Ireland. And less than a month later, they're firing Scott Frost. It's just amazing that he was up there on that stage with Trev Alberts, and now you're looking at a game in which he's not even going to be in the stadium on Saturday. It's completely bizarre to me.
It just kind of makes you say, like, man, I admire that Nebraska faithful, but
they're amazing.
Man, what a bunch of hayseeds!
Oh, keep coming they back. Might be crazy. They're part of a cult.
For it year after year after year.
They're part of a cult.
They're not Texas A&M weird.
No, they're a good cult. I like these people.
Yeah,
they gave Ted Roof his game plan back.
That was a great story this week.
They gave the world Bob Diaco. I mean, there's a lot of gifts that come from Nebraska. So now, again, though, just to put it in perspective, Kerry, you talking about their run defense. Northwestern ran for 76 yards against Duke. Against Nebraska, they ran for 214 and average almost 5 a pop.
Well,
that's hard to put into perspective.
Just remember the fourth quarter there when Nebraska's needing a stop and they just kept running basically dives up the A gap, and it just they had no
First
answer.
down.
They were getting 5, 6, 7 yards a carry, which, I guess kind of rounding this back into Oklahoma stuff, if they're going to figure out anything on the offensive line, my God, you would think it's going to be this week.
Wanya Morris.
I don't know. I mean, if you're bringing back Congal and Wanya Morris, I mean, that could throw a little kink in the works. I mean, too.
I don't think Congal's playing. I just think he's available.
Yeah, but I mean, if Matire doesn't play well, I mean, he's the first guy they'll go to. I mean,
it does help though. I mean, I guess we talked about this before the opener, but it's not like these guys just have never played before.
AC guy just walked by and just totally freaked me out.
Someday
it's going to be somebody with a gun and they're going to shoot me.
Do you remember the post game after UTEP, and you were like, the offensive line, if we're still talking about this in a week's time, okay, maybe there's time to throw up some red flags.
Sure.
That's my concern. Now I will say I thought Levy was interesting in what he said with, I felt like we played with a lot better effort. We were really straining and working, and okay.
That's not
maybe
executing, but yeah.
Yeah, but and it's something we talked about in the Idiot. They made some changes at halftime of what they were, and it was, I want to give credit, I think it's Tim Buck, TWHS or something. He brought it to my attention, that Oklahoma changed what they were doing as far as how they were going to pick things up with their tackles on that outside zone stuff. So basically they just started ignoring the corners and focusing on the safeties. And that's how Marcus Major had that big cut, is he just cut behind that corner and the safety was already eaten up. So there was some different stuff they did, and they changed it around, and I liked it. I did. But to me, it's one of those deals where you're treating the symptom and not the problem. Okay, cool, you made that work. Should you have had to against a team like Kent State? They talk about, we want to be Oklahoma. We're going to worry about us and do what we do. And that, I agree with that sentiment. It's fine. But you had to make that change because you couldn't just do what you do. And that, to me, that's one thing if you're playing Baylor. It's another thing if you're playing Kent State. And to me, that's a concern.
But to me, it looked more just like, they didn't really understand how to block that front that they were playing against. And to make those adjustments at halftime, let's face it, we're used to watching coaching staff that doesn't make offensive adjustments at halftime. I mean, we're used to a coaching staff that plays really well in the first half and then gets shut down in the second half. I mean, that's what we're more used to. It's
Sure.
It's rare to see a coaching staff that's we didn't play that well in the first half. We went inside and made some adjustments, and then second half we were good. Well, so I look at it as a positive from that perspective.
I agree. I think that's a really good point. Because guys, obviously I didn't do the post game with you, but my thought was this game would have been tight if this was last year.
Yep.
They would have let Kent State hang around, and I was super impressed with how they came out in the third quarter and really answered and just put that game to bed in 5 minutes. That was the staggering part, is how quickly and how rapidly they just put them away. And that's not, again, that's not a great team. I don't want to oversell it, but that's not a bad Kent State team. And that quarterback, again, did some interesting stuff, gave them some problems. But like I said, it's just one of those things where the only way I can see, okay, they make a big jump this week, is if Wanya Morris just kind of is a confidence builder mentally for that group. Okay, now we've got our guys. Now this is what we've been. Now we can all do what we're doing. We know, we spent all summer, we spent all fall working. Now we're right again. And I don't mean that against Guyton, because I thought he played a decent game on Saturday. But maybe it's a mental battle that they can kind of get over now.
It's going to be really interesting. And, I think it's kind of been thrown out there by multiple people this week as far as, is Morris just sliding right back into right tackle? Is that what they're going to do? Or do you bump him inside and let Guyton continue playing right tackle, and maybe Morris can play guard?
And this is why I say it could throw a kink in the works, is because he's been working scout team. I mean, he hasn't been working side by side with those guys, with the ones. I mean, it's maybe it's not an adjustment at all, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm just being I'm being doom potty, but
I'd rather take my chances with Morris though than whatever the hell they have been doing.
Yes, and it's what they were doing all throughout spring and the first part of camp until Morris's situation came.
Gray
came
and
to
Marcus
light.
Major still ran the ball really well in the second half of that game.
They did, but I don't think that what they put out there, like it's one thing to do it against Kent State in the second half. They're going to get beat by Kansas State if they can't.
I just haven't seen Wanya Morrison been like, oh, he's really good. Like, it's been more like, why isn't he better?
That's fair.
That's fine.
So I don't see him as a ultimate solution.
Well,
here.
he's the only last grasp that I have. He's the last straw that I have.
Absolutely. If it's not him, you're going to go through this issue the entire season.
You can push the panic button. And I'm not saying that if they don't run for 200 yards, it's going to be a complete failure in Lincoln either. It's imperative that they start a lot better than they did a week ago, because the last thing that you want to do is give this Nebraska team that's already going to probably be galvanized and fired up and whatever you want to call it, any slight hope of thinking, hey, we might have a chance in this game.
You don't want to go out. I mean, the worst thing that you could do is go in there, have Dillon Gabriel throw an early pick.
Yep.
Defense let a guy get behind him
Palmer.
in coverage.
Yep.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden it's Katie bar the door. That's what you have to avoid. And look, I'm not saying that they're not good enough to be able to overcome that if it plays out that way in the beginning, but for your first game on the road with those fans, with the emotions that's going to be in that stadium,
100%.
like that's the last situation you want to be in.
Did you guys see the Mike Brooks stat this week?
I did not, no.
I think Ryan Aber retweeted it into my timeline yesterday. First time since 1937 OU hasn't turned the ball over in its first 2 games of the season.
Yeah, I had heard that
wild.
stat. Yeah.
1937?
No, wow. That's amazing.
That's insane to me.
It's hard to go 2 games without a turnover.
But you would think like all the cupcakes that they've played.
I mean, Gabriel's had a couple of passes that should have been intercepted.
Should have been, and he did throw the pick that got in the south end zone.
Yeah, he did throw a pick, but it was pass interference.
Right,
yeah.
right. And I don't know. I think the guy did like grab him and
he did.
Oh, it was a
back,
definite penalty. Yeah.
It is.
Well,
what
it was the same thing that happened in the 38 season in game 2. I remember that.
Absolutely.
It was a PI.
Remember it well.
There were forward passes in 38, but Yeah, I mean, how are you having turnovers from like 38 to the 40s? Like, you don't even have forward passes. I guess, though, people died when they played college football in those days, so.
They survived the war, World War II, I guess.
Well, they had to quit for the war for a while.
Which you always said was arguable for the reasons why.
You
No, it's
that Hitler had some pretty good ideas. I don't know. Kerry said some weird stuff. It was a strange night.
That's the clip that we use for the social media this week. No, I'm excited about this weekend. I've never been up to Lincoln, so it should be pretty fun. Offensively or defensively, it doesn't matter which way we go with this.
By the way, you didn't miss anything in 2009. That game,
five interceptions?
To this day, remains one of the most difficult games I've ever had to watch in person. It was awful.
That was the Ndamukong Suh domination
That was
game.
the offense basically turned into Landry Jones dropping back and getting rid of the ball, throwing Hail Marys over and over again so Ndamukong Suh did not murder him.
Well, luckily for Landry Jones, that seemed to be just about everybody that played Nebraska that year. That was, and which is the most wild part about it is, even though it was 13 years ago, it's not that long ago that Nebraska was halfway respectable.
And that's what I think has been
Pelini,
funny of the entire week. That's all Brent Venables knows about Nebraska. So it's not like him trying to build it up in his own head. This is all his memories are of Nebraska being one of the best teams in the country year in, year out. So I think
he mentioned that Kansas State game. I mean,
98.
to me, that was one of the best attempts at beating Nebraska that I saw in that era.
Yep.
But those you're talking about. I still remember to this day watching that game and just how physical it was, and just 2 teams that had a lot of really good players on both sides of the ball. And that is a lost era. I mean, like those Kansas State teams, you can't argue, 98, 99, those were the best teams that Bill Snyder ever had when they had Michael Bishop. I don't know if Bishop would have been the quarterback in 98.
He was in 98.
Okay.
I lived there,
was,
so that team is still in my memory.
I mean, you go through, all the eras and the players that they've had, but those teams, and that was when, they were just killing it on the JUCO scene. I don't know if you even followed recruiting back then, Josh, but like every single, big time junior college kid, and that was when the Jayhawk conference just had Division I guys left and right. Like they were just feeding off of that Jayhawk conference system.
Mm-hmm.
I do
and
think
that was because that's the most organized JUCO conference in the country. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like they do a really good job top to bottom.
doesn't even seem like those guys play football anymore. In the JUCO,
I know. It's so different. Like there's not many Terrence Newmans running around in the JUCOs in Kansas anymore.
My
but I mean,
God.
there are.
Who was the linebacker from Garden City? Who was the linebacker from Garden City that Kansas State had?
Was that Jonte Buell?
No.
Was that him? Was he a? They had.
I remember the rumor was that he was driving around like a BMW or something, and like it was like, oh, they pawed him.
Yeah.
It was like.
What? God, he was really good too. What was his name?
Like Michael something. It wasn't. Might have been Kelly. I don't know. You have to look up linebackers. Like
there was. Yeah, the Kelly kid. That would have been under Brent. Let's see. Where is he? Specialist defensive line.
But yeah, because it felt like
Jeff Kelly.
Okay. Jeff Kelly. Yeah.
It felt like
that's the guy.
There was Jeff
year,
Kelly and there was Mark Semino.
Semino's the one I was thinking.
Semino's. I mean, Semino played the NFL forever.
Mm-hmm. Felt like last year they were trying to manufacture interest in this game because no one had actually been a part of it, where this year it feels a little more real because Brent has had those firsthand accounts. And just that answer yesterday gives you an idea of what this game really means to him.
Well, and I think that, Carrie and I talked about this on the post-game podcast. If there's going to be anybody that I would feel confident about preparing this team to be mentally ready and to be ready for what they're about to see on Saturday, I think it's Brent Venables and this coaching staff. It's easy to say that 2 games in. We haven't seen anything other than, obviously what we know about him. But, I would be slightly more worried if it was last year's staff preparing this team to get ready to go up to play a Nebraska team that is going to, at least from the beginning, feel a little rejuvenated about things, just with Scott Frost not being on the sidelines anymore.
I mean, you don't know. I wonder how that goes. I mean, it really comes down to how do the players feel about Scott Frost? Like, do they is this something that they take to heart and it pisses them off, or like you feel like you cost the man his job that you really care about? Like, I don't know how you work through the emotions, and I think that's what Brent, is probably going to keep him up at night, and Jeff Lebby and Ted Roof, like. What kind of team are they facing? A wounded animal? Or are they facing a scared animal? Like what exactly? How are the emotions going to play out?
I feel like it's going to be like one of those animals that is like going to be fighting for its life as it's dying, and you just gotta you gotta
kill it.
It's a little heartless, but you just gotta go up there and take the knife out of your pocket and go up to its neck and just slit the throat.
Like, is Mickey Joseph's pregame speech going to be about how he went to see Coach Frost the night before, and he had to take,
on his deathbed.
He had to take the gun away from him, and the last thing he said to me was, "I want you to win it for me, and I'm checking into the
win it for the Frosty
Mental Institute next. If you win, I'm checking into the Mental Institute to get help. If you lose, I've got another gun."
Mickey Joseph kind of seems like the guy
I'll
that
be
would
dead before you find me.
Yeah, go up to Scott Frost and just shoot him in the head.
Oh, God.
Why does it always come to murdering people with you?
Because I think that's probably what they should have done to Scott
Coach Frost.
Bam.
Yeah, that's what they should have done. No, it's going to be interesting.
It's going to take him a while to spend that $17 million.
He's the big winner out of all.
He is.
He won.
There's not going to be any gun involved whatsoever.
Where are he and Edo vacationing? They got to be vacationing somewhere really.
Well, that's what Edo has come out and admitted. Like, they gave me $17 million.
Yeah, that was a great clip.
I mean,
that was a great clip. It does seem
wouldn't
like
do that, yeah.
Just from
What
reading,
door do I leave through?
just from reading everything that is out there as far as the way that this all went down over the last, couple days up in Lincoln, it seems like everybody, the only reason Scott Frost was back was because he was one of them. And probably a little bit because of the money.
And Trev
But
Alberts was new to the job.
he
and
was
he wanted
given
to
that
kinda give
extra benefit.
He
Like
was.
everybody wanted it to work out. It just didn't.
Everybody knew he should have been gone after 2021.
Sure.
Just like Clay Helton the previous year.
Sure.
Like, he should be gone, but you brought him back, and now you're stumbling again.
Yeah,
It's
just like
just-
Cliff
I mean,
Kingsbury and Mike McCarthy.
Like, no one has been able to kind of unlock the secret to Nebraska football, because the way the world has changed, it's just like we were talking about with Kansas State. They figured out, they used what they had, which was the Jayhawk Conference junior college system. Nebraska, I mean, what do they have? What's their and no one's come in there like with a pipeline to anywhere to bring kids in there. Or hell, maybe they need to go out and hire like a 7-on-7 scumbag or
I
something.
read like they tried to bring kids in from Florida. Like they tried to change it all up, and that fell apart. And they're trying to go back to their roots. And it's like nothing's connecting.
I just don't know how you fix that. And I think if anybody was going to, and maybe that's part of the problem too, kids today don't know anything about Scott Frost.
Caden Helms didn't know about OU-Nebraska being a thing when we talked to him yesterday.
Oh, I think that just about every
A Nebraska
player,
kid.
A Nebraska
like,
kid.
I mean, what's your biggest sell at Nebraska? Hey, we sell out all of our games.
I mean, truly, even for me, I'm 35, and like really the only true memories of like Nebraska football that I have are kind of loosely. Like, I don't really truly remember 95 national championship in the Fiesta Bowl against Florida. I do, but I don't.
Okay.
I kind of remember like
it was impressive.
I kind of like truly the only like real thing that I remember, and obviously my family has told me about it, and my dad and uncle played in the 71 game. It just like maybe the 73-21 game here in Norman. I remember being there, but I don't truly like remember it.
The one you mean the one where Schnellenberger was the coach?
Yeah, I want to say like 96 or 97. They put 73 up here in Norman.
Or that was probably when Blake was here, because that's when
I
they
think it
started
was Blake.
Seth Luttrell at
So
total
98?
running back. Yeah,
98, yeah. Like I remember that, but at the same time I was 11 or 9.
yeah. That was. I mean, you remember peak Nebraska and lowest of lows Oklahoma.
Sure. I mean, and the only reason I know about
really,
it is,
I mean, like the Gary Gibbs era, those games were competitive, but you never felt like OU was going to win.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just trying to think. I mean, really, you do have to go back to Switzer and Osborne to where this was truly a great rivalry, where you felt like, and like, I don't think of like the 2010 Big 12 championship as like, I don't see that as like, oh, that was one of the great games.
No.
And even though OU came roaring back in the second half, it just wasn't one of those games where it felt like, wow, that was a classic. I mean, like I would say the game in Kansas City at Arrowhead
2006 was a better example.
Yeah, where Jermaine Gresham had the catch and
99-yard drive.
Yeah.
It's just different. It's different. Like, and I don't really even think of somebody like Kenny Stills or something that really embraced the OU-Nebraska rivalry.
No, because it meant nothing back then either.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Once they split the divisions and you didn't play them every year.
Sure.
Took it away.
Like the playing OU-Nebraska being played on the Friday after Thanksgiving was never a thing in my life.
yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now I
But that's
know
the thing.
about
It's like
it.
it's when people are like, "Oh, I really wish we would bring back OU-Nebraska for post Thanksgiving," or it's like it doesn't matter anymore.
But I say that, and at the same time, I do understand and respect like how big of a deal it is, and the grander, big scale thing of how big the tradition is. Like the OU, I was looking at old pictures last night, and like the Barry Switzer, Tom Osborne, something about those old pictures. It's just like, wow, that's college football.
I mean, that's the thing about it. Like it's really, it takes years and years of developing a rivalry between two really good programs. Like Kansas State remembers that Nebraska rivalry fondly in the mid 90s to late 90s.
And that's it.
And that's it. Yeah. Like Oklahoma, it's just been too long. Like OU Texas has continued to go. Bedlam has been the bell cow pretty much. That's been, something that fans get excited. It's all replaced Nebraska. And, going to the SEC, it's going to start up a whole new thing for a new generation of people that's going to grow up to watch that.
Sure.
Nebraska just doesn't fit in anymore. And I'm afraid to say that Bedlam's probably going to go the same way eventually.
I don't think I'm ready for that conversation.
Yeah, again, that's emotional
'Cause that
damage. I'm not
sucks.
ready for that. So,
But at the same time, I guess just getting back to the game on Saturday, defensively, it feels like OU's. I mean, we've kind of talked about it with the players this week, Bob, just as far as the foundation that they've set here over the first couple games. This thing feels really positive. I mean, it was another really, really good performance against Kent State.
Yeah, the first half was a little weird because it felt like tackle for loss. Oh, gave up a major third down conversion, and that felt PTSD of what we've seen the last couple of years. But they figured it out in the second half, and you're starting to see what we asked about in the preseason. Was this going to be a collective group that was really good, or were some stars going to start to emerge? And look at what Danny Stutzman and Reggie Grimes have done, and Billy Bowman in the back end too. There's three guys right there that you're starting to feel like you can count on to make major plays every single week.
By the way, Josh, do we have an update on shrimp from you?
It is beautiful that you asked me that. Tiffany had a work meeting last night, and I was like, you know what I'm making tonight? So I did cracked pepper and lemon.
Lemon and cracked pepper,
pepper, I think. Yeah. Yeah. And had it. It was awesome. Mixed it with. I used it. It's a little different than some of the others that are kind of like you'd put them on pasta or something like that. I did it a little differently. Just kind of did it with almost like a salad, just to kind of because it's not as like saucy, I guess, if you don't really like that kind of stuff. So I liked it a lot. Went through it. Layla ate one of them. So anytime I can get my children to eat anything that is not like mac and cheese or peanut butter and jelly, that's a huge win in my life. So that was a
nuggets.
parenting, one. Yeah, exactly. Like one for dad kind of moment there. So, but she ate it, liked it. So there is, there may have to be another order just because it's something they will eat. But yeah, no, I really liked it. Finally got around to having it, and I was like, I can talk about this on the pod. I was completely ready and prepared for this conversation.
Now we're talking about primeshrimp.com, PRIME shrimp.com. You could go take advantage of us in our promo code Sooner Scoop, and you'll get $20 off your first order. As Josh said, Dad was able to cook all by himself. There's no prep. There's no mess. Find you something to cook on the side, or just make a salad like Josh did. And you can pick from a lot of different of their signature sauces and styles. You got the French Quarter Alfredo, the garlic herb butter, Louisiana shrimp boil, the signature sauce, signature style, and you get just simply shrimp where you season with whatever you want if you look at yourself as a chef in training. And the brand new lemon and cracked pepper. That's primeshrimp.com. Can't thank you guys enough for your support of their sponsorship of the Unofficial 40 podcast, but go check them out. Primeshrimp.com, PRIME shrimp.com. Use that promo code Sooner Scoop. You'll get $20 off your first order. All right. I will say this about kind of just the players and what OU is facing. Like, to me, this is the ultimate test of whether or not this defense is not fixed, but legit.
I see that because, I mean, what Casey Thompson did to him last year, first off, and what the offense and Grant at running back have been able to do the first 3 games, they put up points. They put up yards. Like, I don't expect that. Like, that offense isn't going to fall off a cliff because Scott Frost is gone. If it falls off a cliff, it's because OU's defense is where it needs to be.
I think it might be better with Scott Frost gone. There has been a lot of talk about that, though.
Yeah.
Just like he hasn't been allowing Mark Whipple. I heard a Nebraska radio guy say that, when he walked out in the second half against North Dakota with an offensive play sheet, people in the crowd were losing it. Because
that's what Whipple was brought in
every
for.
time that Scott Frost made a decision, it was the wrong one. Going back to the onside, and I think that's when
I forgot about that.
That's when Trev Alberts, I think, really started thinking like, and Sean Callahan talked about this just as far as when they onsided the kickoff in Dublin. Trev Alberts, I guess, was on the sidelines. and he was into the game. And then they did the onside, and I guess his body language just completely changed, and it was just a steady trickle from downhill after that as far as Scott Frost's career. And it'll be interesting. That's why I have moments of pause when I say I think OU goes up there. They should win by a couple touchdowns. But I say that Nebraska's last 13 losses have been by one score. But at the same time, I do think that there's going to be some stuff that they throw at Oklahoma this weekend from an OU defensive perspective that it's going to be a really nice test before the pickup of obviously the K-State game and then TCU in Texas.
I mean, like, when I watched the Northwestern game, and that's the one game I can say I've watched from beginning to end for Nebraska, like when I heard the name Mark Whipple, I was just kind of like, okay, I know the name, and then you look him up, and like his biggest success in college was being Pitt's quarterback last couple of years.
Yeah. Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett's quarterback.
You probably found him underneath the bus that Narduzzi ran him over with.
Well, I can't remember what happened there.
Narduzzi, didn't he say after the first, I think it was before the first game of the year against West Virginia, that they didn't run the ball enough last year and just completely threw him under the bus?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean...
Yeah, had a Heisman finalist at quarterback, but he did a poor job.
And a Biletnikoff wide receiver.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I would love to cover Pat Narduzzi. I think that would be a lot of fun because he just seems like he's half crazy.
Oh, I think he's
not full crazy. Yeah. No, but I mean,
I think in the last 6 months he's become salty as hell.
Yes. Well, yeah. After he pretty much lost it once the Addison thing happened. But no, I mean, Whipple seems like kind of one of those guys that is made for like Brent Venables to feast on. Like he's got that that pro career where he's been a coordinator, not a coordinator, but a quarterback's coach. He was like at Miami as a coordinator, but like he's a QB coach with the Browns. Boy, that was pre-Baker. That didn't last long. And I mean, it's just like he seems like one of those guys that he's 65 years old. Like he's probably set in his ways. Like there's a lot of film. You kind of know what you're getting. Like to me, this seems like a pretty good matchup coaching-wise between Venables and his staff and Mark Whipple.
It helps too, doesn't it, Josh? OU defensively, I don't know if they're doing anything at an elite level, but it seems real solid across the board. Defensive line, you brought it up in the Monday Morning Idiot. I thought Isaiah Coe had a really nice game against Kent State. It just seems like they're getting good play from all three levels of the defense, and that could be for the first time in a long time that you could say that.
Well, it is... to me, it's like anything else, or not anything else, but I think in defense, if you've got a solid core up the middle, you're going to be really tough to beat. And if your core is Isaiah Coe playing the way he has the first 2 weeks, Danny Stutzman playing, at a level even beyond, I think, what I could have hoped for him. Like he's really that was one of the best linebacker games I've seen in 10 years at Oklahoma. Like that was on the Brian Asamoah at Baylor level last year. Like I thought he was just unbelievably good. Yeah, and then you've got Billy Bowman. I mean, that's a really solid spine of your defense. And then you throw in guys like Grimes that are playing well. Justin Harrington's starting to make some plays. So there's a lot to like there. But I agree with you. I think there are 2 or 3 real standouts, and Stutzman and Bowman are those two to me. And then I think you've got a lot of really solid guys around. Reggie Grimes is making some nice plays. I think he's been a little opportunistic. It's been maybe a little better on the stat line than what's actually happened in the game. But don't get me wrong, he's playing well. But I think there's still some things that are growing and developing. I want to see what they can develop as a pass rush, kind of opposite of Grimes. Ethan Downs has been solid, but you kind of thought, okay, maybe we'll see a little more with all the buzz that that clearly he's a guy that Coach Chavis loves, Brent loves. I mean, because he's just an easily likable kid. You get it. But I want to see, can he take his play to the level that I think was kind of hinted at, I guess you'd say. So, like I said, I want to see where that goes. But I do. I like what this defense is doing. I think that's the best news for Oklahoma going into this game. This would feel like a massive trap the last 2 or 3 years. And this point, you're like, well, whatever else happens, Nebraska's not going to run away from Oklahoma. Like, they're not going to go and put up 30 and OU can't keep up. Like, it's not going to be that kind of game. Worst case, you try to get out of there 24-17 and just live your life, and that's kind of what I was going to ask you guys. For you, I mean, like, to me, go win. Just whatever, just win. Get out of there, and that's fine. Like, this is a big, lot of variables that are hard to foresee in this game. So to me, you go win, you move on about your life. What is the kind of win, though, that, and I realize, like, it can be so varied in this answer, but for fans, like, what's an acceptable win? Like, what's something they should feel good about? Is it 31-17, something like that, where you play pretty clean ball? I mean, what are kind of the marks that if Oklahoma is going to be a playoff team, like, what are the things that you would want to see? It's
such a cliche answer, but if they go up there and control the football game, where there's just never that feeling of Nebraska grasping at your heels in the third or fourth quarter, if it's controlled, I feel like that would be, you'd walk out of there and go, okay, this team could be pretty good.
I feel like there's so many different answers, though. There's
Sure.
like, okay, what's the score for
100%.
the Sooner Scoop Twitter mentions? Like, that score is 77-0.
100%.
And Dillon Gabriel throws for 500 yards, and there are no tackles for loss at all on offense. But, like, realistically, yeah, I mean, I think in the high 30s, low 40s to 10.
That's kind of an ass kick.
I mean, you say, is that a playoff team?
Sure.
Like, that's a playoff team.
Because again, when I said that I think it's going to be a tight ball game and a really tough ball game, I'm not saying that I think Nebraska's any good. I don't think that they're good. Does that make sense?
What would
100%.
if everything had played according to play? And like, I think we forget last year, like, we made it out like Nebraska was another game where OU got out front and then let them back in it. But that wasn't. Didn't Nebraska have a little bit of a lead at halftime?
Ooh, that's a great question. What was the score at halftime?
It wasn't pretty.
Because, I mean,
I want to say it was like 17-14 or something like that.
They might have had a 3-point lead at halftime. Might have been like 10-7.
I'm looking it up. Hang on. Let's see here. It was 7-3 at halftime. Oklahoma was up 7-3.
Yeah.
Oh, they were up 7-3. Okay.
And Nebraska went up. Wow, I forgot Nebraska. No, okay. I was reading a number wrong. I was like, Nebraska went to the third with a lead?
It was going to be 14-10, but they blocked the extra point and took it for 2. It was 16-9.
Yeah,
Then it's 23-9.
That's right.
And then Nebraska scored.
That's right. OU goes up 23-9 on a Kennedy Brooks touchdown run. What was that? Right beginning of the fourth quarter. So you're basically up 14 to begin.
Because then the DJ Graham pick didn't mean anything because they punted.
It was on fourth down.
They punted right away,
That's
and then
right.
Nebraska scored on that next
That's
drive
right.
because
Okay.
of the field position.
It was still a great pick. Shut up,
was
people.
still a great
Stop
pick.
it.
Yes.
I don't want to get mad.
Of course
I'm not
it was.
gonna,
I said it. I mean, I said, like, they're going to be replaying that highlight, and they still replay that highlight. I mean, not even just OU replay. Like, ESPN replays that highlight all the time still.
It probably plays in USC's pregame stuff. Like, they probably put that up there.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, if you told me right now,
35-24, that's what I'm saying.
yeah, I take that immediately.
Yeah,
100%.
I would take it.
And that's not even, I guess, quote unquote, a cover, right? Because I think it's still hovering around 12 and a
I didn't
half.
even look today.
That'd be too many points, I think. People don't want to see Nebraska scoring 24.
But
I
they
think
average
what-
45, so you just have to live with
good
it.
offensively,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, they can score some points.
And they're at home.
I think what Eddie said is a really good point. If there's no point in the second half when Nebraska has the ball and could tie the game, I think you're doing well. That's okay. Like, that's a reasonable, it's 24-10. Like, okay, they could get within a touchdown or they could get within 3 or something like that, but they never have the ball with a chance to tie the game. To me, whatever you get above that, that's mustard. That's great.
Of course, if it's 24-10 Nebraska at halftime, like, that's...
Well, we might not ever
that's a
come back to
problem.
Norman.
That's a problem.
Bob and I might just head for Canada.
Well, Eddie, I was thinking about this. You're the most well-placed of us to know the temperature of Nebraska. I mean, this is
you're
going to
almost
sting
a
Harry's
Nebraskan
soul
at this point.
Yeah. Is there anywhere on earth you've lived as long other than Oklahoma than you've lived in Nebraska.
Not 13 consecutive days. And that's why when Caden Helms talks about getting 24 tickets for his family and all this fanfare about him returning home, nobody has said shit about me going back to Nebraska.
You're home away from home.
It is my home away from home. I
Like
have some places that I'm going to be taking Bob.
To the drover, do they just like, Betty?
They better be. They better be.
It's going to be like Goodfellas. Eddie's going to walk through the back door. He and Bob are going to get a table right at the front of the stage.
That's right. That's right. That's where we'll be going to lunch on Friday.
Who was the recruit that recreated that?
Was it Adrian Ely?
I think it was Adrian Ely.
I think that's right.
He did the Reservoir
restaurant.
He did Reservoir Dogs.
Ely did?
Yeah.
You're right.
And he said he had never seen the movie. He had no idea what the heck they were doing.
That's kind of a party foul right
That's
there.
beautiful.
Eddie, pop quiz. Have you ever seen Reservoir Dogs?
I have seen Reservoir Dogs.
Okay. Hey, there's a win for us.
I mean,
There
that's
we go.
that's a Sunday AMC kind of staple, isn't it? Like a rainy
I don't
Sunday
find it all that
afternoon.
rewatchable thanks to the ear scene.
ears.
Yeah, the ear scene.
Ears hard.
Because no matter what,
Maybe
when
that's
you
why
start-
everything
even-
comes back to murder for me.
Even when you start the movie, you're like, okay, I can only watch this until the ear scene. So is it even really worth getting into?
Sure.
There are movies like that where you're just like, I can only go an hour 10 in because an hour 11 I'm out hard.
Well, like
So,
I'm never watching
yeah.
The Joker again. Like I've watched it, I enjoyed it. I'm never
Agreed.
watching it again.
That
Agreed.
was Traffic for me. That movie from the early 2000s.
Yeah.
A great drug movie. God, it's hard to watch again. Like it's a great movie and you know it is, but you're just like, man, I can't invest myself again. It's just like, I don't know, you feel dark. Like you feel like you're going into a bad place.
What's the other one? Crash?
Yeah.
Like, that's a hard
I
movie
know
to
the
rewatch.
movie, but I don't think I've ever seen it.
I don't think I've ever seen Crash, honestly. I remember it being really
All the intertwining stories coming together.
that's
Seems like
there's the one that
Quentin Tarantino type deal.
and I would say Reservoir is one of the few movies I feel that way about. Like I could watch Pulp Fiction
Yes.
6
No,
a.m.
like,
in the morning,
Pulp
midnight
Fiction-
at night. I'm in on all of it.
Pulp Fiction, Goodfellas, Casino, like those are murder movies that you can rewatch over and over.
Oh God, Casino's so great. Sorry, wow, I don't know how we got here, but
I mean, the head vice scene, I'll even watch that again just because you've never seen somebody's head put in a vice like that.
just him screaming at him like, "You made me do this to you, you idiots!" For him.
And then the eye.
Maybe that's something that they should start doing to Dillon Gabriel if he holds onto the ball.
And now we're back on track.
Now, way to bring it back to OU football in the most awkward and terrible way.
You're
That's
welcome.
beautiful.
Well, we're best friends now. We were joking at practice, so we can say that.
Even
You and
Levy
your
said it
quarterbacks.
Monday, though.
No, we did. He
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And, I think that offensively it's been good, but maybe not what I thought. Is that fair?
How much do you think both of our points of view are affected by what we've seen for
A
the
lot.
last 10 years?
A lot.
Riley is, guys, I can't lie. I'm even surprised with how quickly he's got that offense running at USC. Like that's pretty damn. They just marched on Stanford, and Stanford's terrible defensively, but still,
That's
like
your guy.
that is
That's your guy, David Shaw,
yeah,
who I've been saying is overrated for a long, long time.
yeah.
Fumble in the red zone.
That game is
interception in the
fairly
red zone.
tight if they
I
stop
know.
turning the ball over inside the 20.
Stanford cares more about having former or a few, NFL Hall of Famers kids than they do being good at football, I think.
Yeah. Sign all the Hall of Fame running backs kids. They're going to do all that. So, but yeah, I can't, I look at it and statistically, it's pretty strong what OU's doing offensively. It's not bad or anything like that. Their points per play, I put up something on the board. OU's number 3 in the country right now in defensive points per play, and offensively they're number 17. It's not bad or anything. It's not like they're being unproductive. It's just, we got so used to just every series you were like, they may score a touchdown here.
Yeah.
You just get that vibe. And right now it sputters a little bit and it's not quite there. But again, it's a new system. It's different. It's a change, new quarterback. Offensive line's got a lot of turnover. The receiver
I'll say this,
room
though.
is, it's sketchy.
I'll say this though. We all noticed that the offense was not what it was under Baker and Kyler. It just, It just wasn't. I mean, that explosive, yards
You
per
mean
play
under Riley
stuff.
the last few years?
What did I say? Under
Baker.
No. You
Riley.
said it wasn't the same as
Well, yeah,
Tyler
just
and Baker.
assuming,
Right? You
yeah.
mean after they left? I got you.
Right, after they left, because, I mean, they were doing stuff like when you would look at the stat sheet, and they were averaging like 11 yards per snap and stuff like that. I mean, it was just incredible. Like, college football's never seen anything like that before.
That's why I kept saying this is not normal, folks.
Yes.
Enjoy it. It is funny though, but because we talk like, man, this defense and this offense and Dillon Gabriel needs to play better and all this stuff. Look at the game notes this week. Dillon Gabriel ranks 8th nationally, number 8 nationally, 190.1 passing efficiency rating. Top quarterbacks nationally in yards per pass. He is 9th at 10.37. Passing yards per completion, 19th at 14.7. Completion percentage, 22nd at 70.6. Like they're still playing very good football. It's just not elite, I think, and just gonna have some getting used to.
Here's the other thing, though. I mean, they played 2 games against UTEP and Kent State. Like, we all know coaches don't like showing a lot of stuff early in the season.
Vanilla.
Yeah, like there's so much more to come. Like, I'm not judging this offense
100%
on what it's going to be based on the first 2 games, and then you've got Theo Weiss getting back into it. I mean, Drake Stoops hasn't been that much.
I need Jalil Farouk like I need air.
Well, no, I thought
the ball?
I thought that was interesting this week. I mean, he got the coaches were defending him a little bit, saying he's doing all the things right. The ball just hasn't come his way yet.
Sure.
And a lot of people are mentioning that Farouk is on the right side with Dillon being a left-handed quarterback and just not looking his way enough.
Yeah, it sounds like, and again, being down on the field, it's hard to tell this stuff, but the underneath stuff was wide open. He just is not seeing the field maybe as well as he should.
I would agree with that. I mean, I remember being obsessed about that with Landry Jones and just kind of always noticing that he favored one side of the field. And I'm seeing a little bit of that with Dillon Gabriel.
Is that cause for concern, Josh, or is maybe that's something that as he gets more comfortable out there, I think we forget that he did miss an entire season. Is he just getting back to the action? I kind of asked Dillon Gabriel about this yesterday, and he kind of played it down. But it is, I guess, somewhat kind of interesting.
Hey, talk about the part of your game where you suck.
Yeah, I basically asked him that. But we're best friends now, so we were okay. We could joke around about that.
I mean, he didn't make a joke about the size of your shirt or anything, man. Like,
I beat him to the punch, and I said, I'm just a fat ass asking. So I kind of gave him ammo there, but
no, take the shot for him. Yeah, don't let him take. You take the shot before he can.
My biggest concern that I've seen is timing. Like, it just looked at times, and I'm not saying all the time or anything. And it's not like I'm saying anything anybody doesn't know. It just looked like he would hold it a little too long. Especially in that first half there, that one where he scrambles out right. And he evades one, and like he's outside the pocket. Just throw the ball away. Like, live to play the next play. Like, I think I don't know if and I won't claim that I've seen enough of his UCF tape to know, but you wonder if like he's trying to do a little too much right now. Like, just let it be, man. Let it come to you. It'll be okay. You don't have to be the hero. You don't have to win the Heisman Trophy in week 2 or anything for Oklahoma. Like, just make the plays that are there. And there's just been a few times, but I thought like there's been what, guys? Probably 4 to Farouk that were just inches away from being right on the money. Like, it feels like it's just a little bit of a cohesion thing. I mean, he delivers a beautiful ball. Like, I mean, it's really nice to watch, and I just think it's going to be. I really think it's going to be okay. I think there's enough talent. I said it a second ago. It's called the wide receiver room sketchy, and I just mean like there's not a lot that's proven yet. I think there's good talent there. I think Jaden Gibson. At some point, he's going to emerge.
And
a walk-in touchdown.
I mentioned it to Bob.
Yep, walk-in touchdown.
The throw that the defensive back for Kent State made a great play on it there in the fourth quarter on Saturday against, Saturday night. That was a well-thrown ball. Like, sometimes you just got to tip your cap and say that was a great defensive play.
Well, and I think we're learning.
That's like the.
Go ahead, Josh.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say that's like the Schlee scramble on that third when he's falling out to his left and he hits the receiver on the sideline. You're like, holy God. Like, that's just a great play. I don't know what you do about that.
I think what it comes down to is every quarterback has a personality, and we're kind of learning what Dillon's is. And personally, I think his personality so far is he likes to take the big shot. He likes to hit the big. He likes the long ball. He's like the chicks like the long ball. Dillon Gabriel likes the long ball, and I think probably he just needs to realize, like, when you have the athletes that you have at Oklahoma, just like the Drake Stoops pass that went for a touchdown, like sometimes
trust him.
He hasn't played in an offense where he has the athletes that he has. Like a Theo Weiss that can make guys miss on the sideline, and he likes Marvin Mims because. He played with Jalen Robinson, right, at UCF?
Yep.
He should have, for that one season.
But would have been when he was sitting out, though? Or
20.
No,
he was a weapon
in
for
20.
him.
In 2020.
Yeah, at 20, they would have had a full year.
They would have, and he put a monster number.
Right, okay.
Jalen's kind of like breakout, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. So, like, that's his success, is having a guy like that, and I think that's how he sees Marvin Mims. But, like you said, scanning the field, finding an outlet guy, like, he's going to learn that more with Eric Gray. I mean, you have a lot of options. You got to use them.
It's so weird because it does feel like he loves that deep ball, but I don't think I would consider him like a gunslinger.
Yeah.
I would a Baker Mayfield.
It doesn't. The ball doesn't have that pop coming off of his hand.
Yeah.
Like it's a nice ball that he's throwing, but it's almost also it's kind of his throwing motions. Kind of it's kind of sidearm. But like it just doesn't seem like. He's just not that guy that the ball comes out of his hand. You're like, whoa, he really
just needs to be a great manager. Just a great manager of the game. If he can do that and not turn the ball over, live with it.
Which is what he's done through the first two games.
Yeah.
We sound negative about a guy that completed 75% of his passes on Saturday night for an average of 10.5 yards per attempt.
Oh, I know.
Like that.
The problem is,
like, and the Big 12
I don't want to
week.
overstate what we're saying
right,
here. Like,
right.
Yeah, but the problem is you're playing at Oklahoma,
well.
and you're measured against. Some of the best that have ever played.
And it also, I guess,
in recent memory,
it kind of feels like the walls are closing in a little bit too because you're losing weeks. Like obviously Saturday's coming, but that next Saturday, that's a big boy football game. I know OU needs to play well this weekend and get through Lincoln because of everything else that could happen if you don't go up there and take care of business. I think OU K-State is circled right now as maybe my game of the year for Oklahoma, just as far as what is this thing?
And that means that also brings up that's why it's so important to get the offensive line
100%
in shape this week, because
100%.
Next week you're going to face by far the best defensive line that
you'll face a team that can beat you.
Maybe the best defensive line you'll see all year. By the way, I want to get this in real quick. Deadsoxy.com, DEADSOXY. Go check them out. The temperatures are starting to come down, but they're still around long enough where you need to stock up on your no-shows. But the team colorways, go check them out. Get your crimson and cream packages that they've got those in stock still. Get ready for the season. I know you're going to have to put the long pants on here pretty soon. So if you don't have some, use that promo code SCOOP, and you'll get 25% off your entire order. Or if you just need some socks, or it's amazing how much I find out that we have all these female listeners. Eddie and I met one a couple weeks ago that came in during the weekend from D.C. Mackenzie, I believe was her name. So shout out Mackenzie. But you got the hubby.
I'm just nodding, so I can't be liable. I forgot.
Of course you do. But you got the hubby out there. Great gift for him. Deadsoxy.com, DEADSOXY. Longtime sponsors of the Unofficial 40. We certainly appreciate them. We hope you will support them. Use that promo code SCOOP and get 25% off. But no, I mean, we talked about it early. Wanye Morris coming back. Robert Conjal, I know Bob hates him. But
he's not even
we only had video right now. But even who am I forgetting that? I mean, Key Lawrence. There wasn't a
Nick Anderson.
Oh, Nick Anderson was the other guy he mentioned.
Might finally get the suit up.
I think we all know we've seen Jaden Gibson not get enough snaps that we don't know if Anderson's really going to play in.
Right.
But especially on the road. So getting those guys together and finding a combination that works. And Unfortunately, you're not playing a good defensive line, so you're not going to get strained probably as much as you'd want, as Brent Venables would say. You are going to get. You're right though. You are going to get strained massively against Kansas. You're going to find out who if McCade Matire is not the guy, he's not going to play well against Kansas State. I mean, basically his season is 2 games, this week and next week. If he can't pull it off, got to go with Conchal. Sorry.
And all he did was give up a sack that forced Beatenbow to get him out of there right away in the first game.
Just shitting on him still. He can't stop. It's amazing. Okay, so this is going to be a huge week. I mean, you guys are Bob and Eddie I'm talking about. We're sending Eddie up for even longer than he would be if it was just for a game, because you guys are going to go up and see Malachi Coleman. You're going to see another kid on Friday night.
Cade McIntyre. The commit.
Fremont.
And then you're going to cover a game on Saturday morning. So a big weekend of recruiting for you guys. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, it should be kind of fun. I don't think I've ever been to a Nebraska high school football game.
I know I have.
It's taken an act of Congress to get into one of them, but it should be pretty fun. And I guess it kind of coincides with I would assume the news of the day on the Crimson Corner, with Josh putting in his forecast for Malachi Coleman. And, everything obviously with him being a Lincoln native kid that goes to Lincoln East High School. It should be a bunch of fun here over the next couple of days, and especially over, kind of last week. And I'm sure that we're getting ready to recap that as far as Josh's trips to Washington and Kansas City.
Yeah, it is interesting. I have learned this week that apparently out-of-state media outlets don't go to Nebraska high school games very often.
There isn't a reason most of the time, because if they have elite kids, they stay home.
But what we're talking about is they've had a really hard time getting credentials to even go cover these games.
Yeah.
So it's
now
been kind
I
of
will say the McIntyre situation. It's been hard to get in Malachi Coleman's game.
Okay.
We'll just put it that way.
OU media trying to go to Malachi Coleman. It's almost like when we saw Marcus Hicks, the guy that Wichita was playing against was kind of a jerk to me, because he's like, "Oh, you don't want to see our kids?" Like, well, if you have any.
We've got one kid with an offer from Emporia. Cool, man. We're going to sell a lot of subs off that one. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, respect all your kids. I'm happy to do what we can do, but I never understand. Like, you aren't calling OU and talking to them about this kid either. Like, don't act like it's just me.
Are you scouting teams that you don't play on your schedule? Because then if you are, then you can be a dick to me. But otherwise, why don't you just shut up?
Yeah. But no, I mean, like I said, it was Cade McIntyre's people. I think within like 30 minutes of my initial request, were like, yeah, sure, just have them bring a credential. Like, it was the easiest thing it could ever be, and that's usually the way it is. But every once in a while, you just run into an issue, and it got sorted out. No big deal. Everything's all good. We'll complain about it next week after this is all said and done, and Eddie and Bob are the hell out of Nebraska. So,
by the way, do I get to use a laminating machine? Do I need to make some credentials?
Ooh,
I don't know.
I'm just using my OSSAA one.
I'll take a credential. You want to work?
Son of a bitch! You're gonna make
no.
me work.
I think I have something that we can use.
We need to come up with some really tacky credentials for us to have as a website.
Like really big ones.
Yeah, really 80s colors,
neon pink and green and yellow.
Yes, I'm for all of that.
One side it says Rivals.com, the other side it says January 6th Commission.
Oh, God.
Just as a goof, it'd be funny.
Oh, yeah,
I'm sure. It's a goof. Yeah, it's a laugh.
We're just goofing around in small town Nebraska. Yeah. Aren't we popular?
We support Scott Frost.
God.
The Scott Frost Commission for Truth.
What really happened up here? No, you have put in your Malachi Coleman forecast, though.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. Like, usually when I put in a forecast, I've heard something fairly definitive. Like, this is not exactly that case.
Almost a reaction to the news out of Lincoln.
Kind of, and I mean, don't get me, that's the only thing that I hate about the timing of this, because it makes it feel like, oh, he's just doing this because they lost Frost. I felt like it's been moving in this direction over the last 2 or 3 weeks, really since that Northwestern game. So, I mean, like, I guess you can make some association with it, but it's just felt like more and more he was starting to open up to the idea of maybe this isn't the right place. Like, and again, we were talking about it before the pod. He's got an incredible relationship with Mickey Joseph. Like, that's not going away. I'm not saying this is written in stone or anything like it. I just think there are some things that are going to work out in the end for Oklahoma. Like, I kind of like where that's going to go. Joe John Finley's put in a lot of good work here. I think the staff has really made him a priority. He speaks to them frequently. And so, like I said, it's more of a connecting of the dots and several different things and some conversations I've had this week, both from the OU side and the Nebraska side, that just kind of make me think this is the direction it's going. But like I said, the Mickey Joseph thing is a wild card. Like, we don't know, would the next staff keep him? You know, I've even heard there's some around Joseph that think he's a candidate for that job. And if that happens, I would bet that I'm wrong on this forecast. But if not, then does the next staff keep Mickey Joseph? I don't know. I mean, there's just a lot of variables in the way this could play out. But my guess, just based on some things I've heard, I think this probably turns out well for Oklahoma.
Is Coleman a pure tight end? And if he's a take, and we all know he is, does that maybe not allow them to take someone on defense going down the road?
I keep waiting to hear from somebody that's like, yeah, okay, we've run short on numbers. Like, I'm not hearing that. And I don't know what to make of that, because I really didn't think that was how this staff was going to operate. And I'm not saying it's bad. I think it's good. I think this is what you have to do to compete at this level. You're going to have to, walk up to a guy and be like, hey, man, we love you. We think the world of you. You're not part of our future plans. Like, we'll help you get anywhere you want to go. We can work with you. Whatever you want to do, we're happy to help you. But if you want to play ball, which I'm sure you do, this isn't the place. And so, I think it feels like there's going to be some of those conversations. I can't help but wonder if Joseph Wete was one of those conversations, just because he's a guy that just didn't fit into the plans anymore. Like, that wasn't ever going to be the case. And
that's a sincere transfer portal
it really was.
message as you'll ever find.
Yep.
I kind of get the feel, and I don't know this for a fact, but I kind of get the feeling he's walking away from football just in general.
The way he mentioned his family was kind of a little weird.
Yeah,
too. Like,
it doesn't
definitely
matter.
Family.
Yeah.
I mean, if you followed him on Instagram, you kind of noticed like he's got a lot of interests that aren't football.
Yeah, like I think he's a very successful, like, kind of clothier, entrepreneur. I don't know what it would be called. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But yeah,
kinda
I mean,
like
just
Eddie
kind of.
Radosevich.
Well, he's not an influencer. don't get me wrong.
By the way, we are
but-
restocked on Make Lindsay Street Great Again shirts. So
I mean, we had
yeah.
TV cameras over here yesterday.
We did, yeah.
It was a big deal. But
student TV cameras.
Well, they were TV cameras. God damn it! Can Cade McIntyre? Can he flip and play defense? Like, is that something that they would think about maybe doing? And I'm kind of interested. I know that, like, Bergen Catholic uses him basically. I think he does everything for him. But like, just from the small time that we met each other when I did the interview when I was up in Omaha for the College World Series, his body style, I could see him flipping over and playing defense.
I think that's super interesting on his part. I think he would be one of those guys, like, hey, we don't want to come back and say, okay, we got Malachi, we want you to move now. Because I mean, I'm sure not just on the face, that's a tough pill to swallow, but another Nebraska guy, I mean, that would be kind of a slap in the face, probably. Like, and I mean, maybe he's a mature enough kid to handle that, but it just doesn't feel like that's a move you need to make.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, hey, we like this other kid down the street better than you, but we still want both of you. Yeah.
Like, I think you would at least bring him in and let him start at tight end, see how that goes. And then you could make some adjustments if you needed to and kind of figure it out from there. But
they are kind of like that Llewellyn, Caden Helms body style.
It would be wild.
Very similar.
If you lose Parker and Willis after the season. If 3 of your 4 tight ends on campus for scholarship were from the state of Nebraska.
No shit. That is wild.
Wow.
I didn't even think about it
thought
that
about
way.
it. Yeah. Yeah. That's
Joe
really
John Finley
crazy.
has a Nebraska fetish.
Nebraska, home of the tight ends. I mean, like that's just crazy.
Well, and not to go down this road, but it just speaks to the just sheer incompetence that Scott Frost has been running, for a while now.
Well, because Nebraska didn't
80s,
even pursue Cade McIntyre.
Right. And from what we had talked about back when we interviewed him, and I don't know if he said this during the interview, but it was basically not just we're not interested in you. It was we're not even talking to you. We're not even going to try to recruit you.
Not even the half-hearted OU recruiting Eric McCarty under Lincoln Riley efforts.
Right.
Yeah. Like 6'3", 6'4", 210, and can run in your home state. Like what are we? To me, that would
how
be
many
like
of those guys are in Nebraska?
Who has a brother that I understand is a really good player in his own right up at, I believe, Wyoming.
Wyoming? Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. And I mean, and you add that to, guys, that'd be like OU completely ghosting Morgan Pearson.
Right.
Like a very similar body type, very similar athlete. And, I don't think OU's ever going to have room for Morgan Pearson, but they've never ignored him. Like, it's never been like that.
He's back on campus again?
Yeah.
The baseball team really wants Morgan Pearson.
Yeah, I keep hearing that's his future.
By the way, you know what that kind of reminds me of, just the talk of that, is it just gave me flashback. You think about when Oklahoma State was at their heyday with Mike Gundy and those guys, and they would play Nebraska, and it was every year in the state, and I know this dates me because this is way before any of you guys, but it would literally be this whole statewide thing of, wow, could Oklahoma State actually hang with Nebraska? And then they'd play in Nebraska, just wipe the floor with them. But you think about those programs and where they are now, Oklahoma State, they would never miss on a kid like that in their own state. Yeah. They are so good at evaluating, and it shows you why their program is where they are and why Nebraska is where they are.
Sure.
Yeah. For Nebraska in the state, and I think he's clearly, I was going to say the state they're in to not recruit McIntyre. OU's in the state they're in, and they're recruiting Cade McIntyre. So, that's just abysmal to miss that badly. But yeah, I don't think, I guess to kind of get us back and finish out, I don't think there's going to be a huge numbers issue here. Because I think you're starting to see some whittling down, and we'll get into that conversation in a little bit with some of the defensive guys that maybe they're not going to hit on, and we'll kind of see where that goes. But if you told me this class is 28 or 29, I'm not going to be stunned. I think that's entirely possible. And guys, somebody asked me in to kind of excite everybody. Somebody asked me in board chat if OU were to land David Hicks, Peyton Bowen, and I believe Ryan Yates were their three that they kind of hypothetical to me. Where would OU finish in the rankings? And I just did those three. And for those that don't know, once you get above 20 in the Rivals rankings,
you just take the top 20.
Those three, because they're highly rated, would replace the three lowest rated guys, which right now are Caleb Spencer, Cade McIntyre, and Joshua Bates. Josh Bates. And so those three would jump in. So it's not okay, you just get all the points that David Hicks is worth or all that Peyton Bowen's worth. You get the difference in the total. So I think it came out to 27.65 or 45 or something like that, which over the last 5 years would average out to number 4 in the country. And that's just those three. That's not Malachi Coleman. That's not Tassili Akana. That's not Jordan Renaud. That's just those three. And that's where that point total would have finished in the previous 5 classes. One was 2 or 3, one was 6, and I think one was 4 and one was 5 over the last. So, you're talking about air that Oklahoma's only hit once in 15 years, and that's the top 5, and that was that 2019 class that we all know did not pan out the way some had hoped when it was signed.
Well, Josh, you want to hit Renaud before we go into our trips from the last week?
Sure. So Jordan Renaud took his official visit last weekend. We talked about it, last week in the pod. And from everything I've heard, it went really well. I got the impression that going into Sunday, I'm not sure OU really knew where they stood. And then he spent some time with Venables. really had some kind of one-on-one time with his family and the coaching staff. And the people I talked to really think mom and dad want him at Oklahoma. Like that would be their preference. Obviously a little closer to home. I think they really like the man that Todd Bates is, that Miguel Chavis is, that Brent Venables is, and really feel a connection there. And they feel comfortable sending their son to Oklahoma. Not that they don't at Alabama. I don't want to present it that way, but just that maybe they're a little more comfortable with that situation. My other impression is that Jordan Renaud probably prefers Alabama a little bit. Now, we'll see. I mean, we've seen 100 times where it goes the kid's way, or what you're hearing the kid wants, and we've seen it go what mom and dad want. Like it goes, it can be anything. So we'll see. Obviously, his decision is rapidly approaching.
Monday.
I if you made me pick right now, I would pick Alabama. I don't think that's a crazy idea. I don't think people are wrong to feel that. I know, I know Steve Wiltfong, a guy that is really a big deal whenever he puts a prediction, and he's picked Alabama, and I wouldn't even argue that. I think it's closer than people think it is, and I'm going to wait a little longer to see what I hear. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised either way. I think it's a really tight race. It's not like some of the other ones we've seen where I'm kind of trying to find a way to say, oh, yeah, anything could happen. This is a legitimate two-horse race. I don't think anything would surprise anybody at this point.
Some interesting news out of the college football world. Pete Thamel reporting the SEC has directed Georgia and Tennessee to not play their home non-conference series against Oklahoma. The Bulldogs had OU scheduled in 23 and 31. The Vols' 2020 game in Norman was canceled amid COVID and was expected to be made up down the line. So I think everybody can kind of read between the lines there. That's just some breaking news as we record this.
Okay, so, this is why that is significant is, if you hadn't heard,
Tell
the
us.
SEC.
Uh-huh.
I'm reinforcing what you said because people might tune you out.
Ouch. Ouch.
Well, you say a lot of inflammatory things. I'm going to reach the olds as well. So they're basically saying Georgia don't play OU in 23, which
Correct.
You wouldn't say that if you didn't
or
think
unless,
yes, you were going to both be in the SEC at the same time.
Let me break it down for the for the Facebook crowd that tuned you out. OU is going to the SEC soon.
Do you guys think
That's
is it
really
that simple, or is it because there's a return game of all things in 2031? Is there if you go to OU, there's a good chance you're not getting that return trip. Like that contract wouldn't be able to be fulfilled.
Same thing with Tennessee.
This is like one of those conversations that we just probably don't have enough time. It's an entirely different podcast.
Yep.
It seems like, though, that this thing is going to start moving down the tracks one way very, very soon. And, I don't know.
Can we just get past Nebraska before we have a breaking news that OU is definitely going to the SEC?
Next year?
Yeah.
Well, and I do think, though, that and I don't know if it has anything, because this is coming out of SEC offices. The OU Board of Regents are meeting today and tomorrow. I don't know if they would approve it.
State,
I don't even think that it's anything that's even on the. And I do have something on the Board of Regents meeting. We can at the very end we can get to, but
okay.
Just I wanted to throw that out there as we recorded. I put it on the board. I wanted everybody else to know and react.
I'm ready to overreact to it. Who's ready? Let's go. OU playing in Starkville next year.
Done.
Were we wrapped up with Jordan Renaud, though? I mean, obviously, very positive news.
I guess my only quote, would that open the door for Caden McDonald again?
Well, that's what's interesting. Is so I have, and it's in Woke. I'll skirt around some of it, but I talked to Caden this week. First time he and I have connected in probably a month. I mean, it's been pretty quiet with him. And excuse me, I just got the impression that, when he was talking to me, he was like, "Oh, I talk to Coach Bates and Coach Venables every day," And, I've talked about this pod for a long time. Usually, as tight as the relationship is between the recruit and Oklahoma, it usually dictates how well my relationship goes with that player. Because if Oklahoma's not that involved, they don't want to waste time on me. I get it. No offense taken. Like that's perfectly fine. For the fact that he went, because he was very talkative in the spring, back when we were hearing all the positive buzz, and it felt like maybe Oklahoma led for him. And then it kind of died off, and he was kind of hit and miss and was very quiet. And then all of a sudden this week, he's back in. He set up an official visit. I'm like, man, I don't know. And I don't think it's directly related to Renaud because they're very different players. I would think, if anything, if they lose out on Renaud, it just doubles the importance of Tassili Akana, who's actually going to come in the same weekend as Caden McDonald. So they'll both, I mean, there's more in Woke, so they're going to come in on October 15th, which, very interestingly, with all that we've talked about, is the Kansas weekend. Like, I that's just a curveball I did not foresee, that two of their, 6 or 7 remaining recruits are going to come in on Kansas weekend. I just didn't see that coming.
Is that a situation that maybe the coaching staff, and I'm not saying that they would take that Kansas game more lightly, but it is an opportunity to maybe spend more time with guys. It's not something that you're having to be, and again, like, I don't want to say, like, it sounds bad when I say not dialed in, but you're just not on edge like you would be Baylor, for a Kansas State Bedlam, or a Baylor or a Bedlam game.
Well, and you also, guys, let's just be honest with the reality. You have a much better chance of that recruit having a positive game experience than you do in Bedlam or the other big home one that I'm just going to totally blank on. Baylor, yeah. So, those are, I mean, Baylor's probably a coin flip, guys, and Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, I'd pick OU, but that's Bedlam, man. Anything can happen. So I think you also wait, like, okay, because, I mean, Tassili Akana, he was at Texas last weekend. Cool. He saw him play well and all that. He also saw him lose. Like, and, okay, so what's Saturday night like when he goes out with the players? Like, we lost. The parties aren't going to be as good.
Moral victory.
All these realities of life. Yeah. So it's just not going to be, the moral victory parties aren't quite as fun as the victory parties. So, we'll see. I think that's an interesting tactic, and we'll see if maybe that's something they do. Maybe that's something they choose to do going forward. And the nice thing for them is it may be a respectable game. Like, Kansas may come in and be, hey man, they're trying to fight for a bowl. Like they've got a reason to kind of be, motivated. And this is a decent game that's not going to be like, the crowd leaves after the first quarter because OU's up by 40. So that, I like I said, that's going to be interesting to follow how they choose to handle that, if that's something that becomes a pattern or if that's just when it worked out. But we'll, like I said, we'll see, and we can get into more of that. But I do think it's interesting, and I think Caden, to me, it's just they're trying to weigh out Caden and Marcus Deal. I think that's because you look at nose; those are the two guys that make sense. And as much as I think Marcus Deal is a talented guy, I think Marcus Deal is a future NFL offensive lineman. If anybody can ever convince him, that's where his future is. Caden McDonald is a nose's nose. Like, I love him. I think he would be a huge and really underappreciated addition for this class if Oklahoma could make it work.
Washington trip, Josh. You saw 2 Oklahoma commits. I know that I went and saw Jackson Arnold on the same night. I mean, we hit 4 games last week. And what was it? Yeah, there was an Oklahoma commit or more in all 4 of them.
In 4 different states.
In 4 different states. That's right. I didn't even think about it that way.
Wow. It's amazing, Eddie, that you watched the game in Texas while I was not in the state of Texas. So that is an interesting little sidebar. But, yeah, Washington, go up and see, like I said, my first ever game. I tweeted out the picture, man. I can't lie. Seeing Mount Rainier in the background of guys warming up, that's pretty freaking cool. Like, I was like, that's kind of a shot I have to take. And awesome. I kept trying to get it right, and Josiah Wagner kept turning his back to me. I'm like, turn to me for a second. That's all I need. But finally got enough that I was pleased with it. But I came away really impressed with Josiah Wagner. That dude is just a football player, like just a tough guy. He fits all that, everything that fans hear Brent talk about in his press conferences, everything leading up. He's just a football player, man. Like he's a little bigger than I thought he was, a little more filled out in his frame, probably 5'11", 175, not like a monster or anything like that, but he's bigger and broader than I thought he was going to be. And, Eddie, I think you put up a video. Guy got penalized for, unnecessary roughness. Like you don't see that at the cornerback, nickelback position all that often. He is a more than willing tackler, going to come up, play hard. I thought really looked good in coverage, although, they didn't challenge him at all. It was like, okay, we're going to stay away from 8. We're just going to let him live his life, and we're going to stay over here. But, made some plays on offense. Like I said, and maybe my favorite part is you can see, and I put it up on one of the stories we ran from that, his chin in the post game was just covered in blood. Like I said, when did you do that? And he goes, I don't know. And I'm like, that's my kind of DB right there. I love it. Like he wasn't like, oh God, like worried about picture day. The next day he was like, I don't know when it happened, man. I busted it on somebody. And he and Heath were joking around after the game. There's a play when they call a little reverse and Heath gets out in front. And he sees Josiah, and you could just see him like lock in. He was like, that's my guy right there. And he just buries Josiah. And you think like, oh, Josiah's going to be pissed. No, man, they just popped up, kind of, patted each other on the butt and went back to their huddles. But, it was a fun game to watch. Like I said, Wagner's team, Spanaway Lake, came out ahead, came out on top. Heath, like I said, he's very raw. But the thing I did notice, kind of like Wagner, a lot more physically developed than I expected him to be. He's been in the weight room. Like you can tell, like there's been work done there. He looks good. I think he's probably a guard. He played a lot of tackle for Mount Si. I think he's a guard at the next level. He's probably about 6'4.5", 280, 285, but well put together, real strong. As he starts to like his lower body hasn't really filled out yet. Once that starts to happen, I mean, he could be a drive blocking, really effective guy. Might kind of remind you of like a Drew Samia type. I think I'd like to see him finish a little bit stronger, be a little more physical as the play goes on. But the athletic tools are there. And, he did an interview with me after the game. But, again, talking about Wagner being a tough guy, I like that it pissed him off he lost. Like, I'm always troubled a little bit by guys who are like, yeah, man, you want to talk? You want to catch up? And I'm like, aren't you mad? Like, you lost, man. And he was. Like, but it was really, I know you've come this far. Let me help you out. Like, he was very, very good about it. And so he gave me a few minutes and that kind of thing. But I came away, like I said, super impressed. Both teams had some talent. Spanaway Lake, Wagner's team, has a sophomore running back that might be a guy that OU comes back and looks at in a couple years. They've got some interesting players.
So you're like the Red Sox fans in the movie Fever Pitch when Johnny Damon's out eating dinner after they lost?
Yeah, I want him to hurt. Yeah, I want it. It should. I mean, right?
It's a terrible movie, by the way.
What an
because it's about soccer.
Awful movie.
I mean, it's about soccer. It's going to suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know who that movie was about? That movie's about Arsenal. That's Arsenal.
The book was about soccer. I'm saying that wrong.
Yeah,
the movie, they adapted it for the Red Sox, and that's why it sucked. Yeah.
Well, and they made a movie. There's a movie about the soccer team.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's really pretty good.
Based on the Roger Hornby book?
Yep.
Huh.
David Hornsby, I think, is his name.
Roger Hornsby is a
baseball player. Yeah, I was like, that doesn't sound right.
No, it's Nick Hornby is his name.
It's the guy, Colin, is a British actor. Colin, Firth.
That's the only Colin Firth. That's the only actor that I knew. That's his name, Colin.
He plays the Jimmy Fallon role. He's the Arsenal fan.
Oh, he's the psycho fan. Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah.
It's been Go ahead.
No, I don't think. I think I was just stammering on.
I was just gonna say it's been a long time since you've sent me some film from a game, and I've gotten slightly excited and erect after watching it. And that was what I happened to be at when you sent me the PJ Adebawore.
Yep.
That is some impressive shit.
the clip, and I don't know if you've put it out on Twitter. I know it's what you put up on the board to go along.
I put it with your breakdown, I believe.
Okay.
Playing the zone read.
Because guys, like, it's hard. I mean, you guys saw him. You were there at camp with me. That's a big guy. It's hard to appreciate him changing direction like that. That's not normal. Most guys cannot do that and would have been just dead to rights because the quarterback reads and makes the right read. PJ collapses down a little bit hard on the zone read, and so he gives it to the running back to go wide, and it's a good little back. Guys had some nice runs that night for Platte City or Platte County. That's the worst. It's in Platte City. The name of the high school is Platte County. I've done this about 37 times. I keep getting them crossed up. But anyway, and PJ just like 2-3 steps redirects and is tracked down the running back before he's to the hash. Like it's a freaky play. And that's the kind of, like I was telling, our guy Clint Cosgrove, our Rivals Midwest guy, he just happened to be there that night watching PJ and Edric Hill. And then obviously Platte County has Chendavian Bradley, who's going to, Tennessee. So we were just both there watching, and I was telling him, I was like, guys, it's been years since OU signed a defensive end with this kind of potential. Like, I mean, PJ Adebawore could be a top 10 pick someday kind of talent. Like that's how special he is. And I made the comparison when he committed to Aldon Smith, and I don't think I'm wrong on that. Like, he has special ability. Now hopefully has his stuff together a little more than Aldon Smith did, but I
think everybody's got their stuff together more than Aldon Smith.
Well, and I talked to Aldon. I talked to Aldon. I talked to PJ.
Wow.
I talked to PJ earlier today, and for those that don't know, he's going to graduate early. He'll be in Norman, and I kind of asked him, and he was like, if you're not getting started early, what are you even doing? And I'm like, dang, like that's a guy that's just about his business. Like he is a college guy right now. Like, he thinks of it on those levels. And the thing is, he was fighting through an injury. He's got he and I kind of talked about it. I don't want to get into too much depth. He's got a little nagging injury in the upper body. I'm going to go a Lincoln Riley, there. And he's fighting through it, and he's not right. And you could see him, during the game kind of working it out and messing with it. And, he's not where he wants to be, but he wants to help his team. And so he's got to walk that line of, like, I have a lot of future in front of me that I don't want to screw up. And at the same time, I don't want to miss my senior year with all my friends.
It was so impressive. Like, I just kept thinking, this guy, he just looks like somebody that Oklahoma hasn't. He's one of those guys that OU recruits and you go, man, it'd be nice to get. And then they never get him.
Well,
and he ends up in Georgia or Alabama or, Texas or A&M or wherever.
And they've got two guys like that. Colton Vosick. I mean, yeah. Colton Vosick's destroying people right now for Westlake.
At one of the highest levels in the state of Texas. The highest level, yes.
Yeah. That team that I saw, Anthony Evans. I mean, he played Anthony Evans a week after. I didn't go because I was told from some very good places that he was not anywhere near 100%.
He destroyed him.
He, like, our buddy Mike Craven that works for Dave Campbell's sends me a video, and I'm like, good God, why didn't I go? He had like 3 sacks in the first half. He was just terrorizing Judson's quarterback. And, so that, and then again, like I said, you're still going after Tassili Akana. Like, I mean, they could have 3 I can't remember where Tassili's ranked. I think he's in the top 100 at this point, but 3 borderline top 150 in the country defensive ends in one class. OU has barely signed one of those in the last, 5, 6, 7 years. Like, that just doesn't happen very often.
It's got to be a little, right, it is a little weird because I think OU fans got so used to recruiting high-level offensive players. Like, I don't think people have any idea about, like, how good some of these guys are that Brent's recruiting.
No.
Because it's just, you're not used to it. Like, I think back in the day, you'd have, like, you get, like, R.J. Washington and, this and that, and I'm trying to think the bigger defensive freaks. Probably like,
Gerald.
Yeah, Gerald.
You have to go that far
Tommy
back,
Harris.
Though.
Dusty wasn't like celebrated as a recruit when he was, when he was signed. He was celebrated because he performed when he got here.
Yep.
But I'm just trying to think, like, Zach Latimer was really highly, ranked, then just never panned out. But
Lance Mitchell.
Lance
was a
Mitchell.
Big deal.
I mean, there's been some serious busts like Chijoke and the other. We talked about the linebacker at Kansas State. Who was the linebacker, the Kelly kid? That was a total bust. That was a 5-star JUCO.
Mike
Reed.
Mike Reed. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, but I mean, this week of all weeks, Chijoke cannot be called a
That's
bust.
right. This is
the Nebraska
six.
week in Lincoln. I mean, he pick six, man.
That's when he came. That's when he finally had his one shining moment that we thought was going to turn into something big, and then it just never did.
Like every recruiting fan, OU recruiting fan in the world was like, now it starts. Like he's going to be an All-American, and he just never did anything else ever again. So,
but speaking of offense, Eddie, you saw OU's 2023 quarterback commit, and we might have seen their 2025.
Yeah, Grady Adamson was very impressive on Friday night, but I did go down to Denton Guyer to see Jackson Arnold, and I walked away like I know that Nick Evers is really good. Obviously Davis Bevel and General Booty are on campus, but I was thinking about this on the drive home. It's like, if in a perfect world you get Gabriel back next year, he would sit behind Gabriel, be the second string guy, and then he would be the starter from day one. Like, I think Jackson Arnold, I thought he was really impressive. He just throws such a good ball, and everything that he does looks like it just comes so natural to him. I think a little bit of that is because Denton Guyer's just so goddamn better than everybody else. But at the same time, he just has a certain presence around him, and his ability to throw that, it's not like a deep ball, but it's like that intermediate deep ball is what I call it. And it just like his
it's
touch.
It's not like a deep ball, but it's like
the
not quite a deep ball.
Because I don't feel like he's truly like letting it fly.
Yeah.
But he has such great touch on the ball.
Yeah.
I thought he was just exceptional, and obviously they're going to be one of the best teams in the state of Texas. They're going to be playing well into December,
probably
and
past
close
signing
to
day.
Absolutely. I mean, they are really, really good. But
so, are you joining Archinon after seeing him in person?
I mean, I think he's pretty damn good. If that's not a 5-star, I don't know what is.
That's the movement he's joining.
Yeah,
he needs to be a 5-star.
Come on, join Archinon.
I just don't get it. I'm not a conspiracy guy.
Oh yeah.
But no, you
just promote a conspiracy guy.
Jackson Arnold, I thought, and we talked afterwards. You can see the interview. We put it up on the board and everything like that. But he just seems like he gets it. I know that's so cliche and so easy to say, but I can see why he's obviously why he's the quarterback and the leader of this kind of 2023 class.
And what about the Bowen boys and Yates?
Yeah, Peyton Bowen's unbelievable. I was a little bit surprised. He does the kick returns for Denton Guyer, and he almost broke off a couple. I mean, they beat the shit out of a Lancaster team that was coming off of a win over South Oak Cliff, who won the state championship last year in the state of Texas. So they were really impressive. I thought Yates was really good. And even Eli Bowen, he's not just the little brother of Peyton Bowen.
Awesome.
They stay on one side of the field and basically shut the entire thing down. I thought the Landon Slides kid was a pretty good player. The little wide receiver for them.
We don't see color, but whatever.
Did I say white? I think I said light.
It was tough to tell what you said. If it was a white receiver.
I think I said little light receiver, and I was going to say white, and I was like, and then it my brain malfunctioned.
You decided to erase it.
But he is a little white receiver, and he's good. I think he can go play somewhere.
All right. Anything else we need to get to before we get out of here?
Just real quick.
Friday.
Grady Adamson, I thought
he was terrific. Jacoby Johnson was as what we've known him to be. It stinks that we could watch him 3 years in high school and not know what he is as a corner.
Yeah.
But we know he's a football player.
Yeah. He has the look of somebody that you go, yeah, once he gets to OU and Jay Valai gets a hold of him, I can completely see why they would be wanting to turn him around and play him on defense. He's a damn good receiver, though, in high school.
Yep. And then Adamson, first time we've seen him in a game setting. And
couldn't be more impressed for him to go in.
2025 kid. Whew.
To go into Mustang and to throw the ball the way that he did on the drive to kick the field goal, Bob. I mean, he made plays with his legs.
Third down, fourth down.
He made big throws.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, Josh, I know that you saw the play that I think that's a fourth and long, and he just throws a stripe into a receiver and hits him right out of the break. I mean, it was very, very impressive. And Bob and I both walked away from there thinking he's a lot bigger than I was thinking he was going to be.
He again, guys.
The 2025 in-state quarterbacks are insane.
It's crazy.
Shaker, McComb. Yep.
Connor Quintero, who we really haven't seen a whole lot of.
Oh, he's 26.
He's 26.
Sorry.
Yeah. Even more impressive.
Yeah. So, and that's like, I saw a few clips of Grady, put him in our database, and then I just kind of hit up Wade Stanley, like, hey, what's your practice schedule look like? And he said, and I just kind of had a window. And I was like, well, okay, I'm going to go see this kid. And I'm watching him, I'm like, holy crap. Like, it was kind of those deals, like I took a flyer, and it was a chance to see the Dale Miller kid as well. But I was like, I want to see, like, is this kid as good as he looked on tape? And, man, like, to me, there's no question. That's a Power 5 quarterback all day, every day. Now, whether he's OU's guy in 2025, I don't know that yet. But would it shock me if it plays that way? Not at all. Like, I mean, he really has a lot of ability. He's a good athlete. I don't have a good comp for him. Nobody he like really reminds me of right off the top of my head. But yeah, I like the kid a lot.
All right, I think we got to get out of here. I actually have to go talk to a journalism class.
Teach them about our ways.
Get them some interns.
I was going to say
I'm shopping for interns. Is that what you're saying?
Border Regions.
That's what I'm saying.
By the time this comes out, Border Regions will probably already approve it, but I'm hearing that Patty is going to get a sizable raise.
By the way, announced by
a lot of money.
OU football, they will replace the Georgia and Tennessee series, and they're starting with SMU. They announced a home and home with SMU.
Well, that sucks.
Wow, it's almost like OU knew about this. That's weird.
That's a good series. I mean, I don't mind that.
Yeah,
I wanted a school out west.
Garrett Riley reception?
Yeah, bring that son of a bitch.
No, he's at TCU now.
Yeah, he's at TCU.
That's right. I forgot. He followed Sonny.
All right, Soonerscoopstore.com. The Eddie merch is back in stock, and the flags are coming. I promise they'll be up by this weekend. I've got the photo room all ready to go. And shirts are back in stock, so go get them while they're still here, because they'll go fast. And we've got the unofficial 40 retro helmets fully stocked again. So if you were looking for one of those and we were out of your size, go get one of those while you can as well. We're not caving into the pressures of cease and desists, so we're still in stock. So we're going to get out of here. The guys are heading to Nebraska tomorrow. Safe travels to y'all. Josh, safe travels this weekend as well. And we'll be back again for the post-game show. We'll figure out how we're going to do that, but we'll get one for you. And remember, I want to apologize. We've had some iTunes issues. We're getting that all worked out. We have switched hosting providers. We're getting off of SoundCloud. We're on Spotify now. So hopefully all this will work out. We'll find out when we post this one how quickly it shifts to iTunes, but we want to get the iTunes stuff worked out for you guys. And I know it's been frustrating, and I apologize, but hopefully we'll get this fixed and we won't have these problems moving forward. So we have been working hard on that. Should have that all fixed here soon, so you don't have any problems either downloading or just seeing the episodes on iTunes. So outside of that, Spotify, Google Podcast, we've switched over everything and are switching over some. So just bear with us a little bit longer, but all the issues should be worked out here very soon. But remember, we have the unofficial 40 for the week, and then the Oklahoma Sooners post-game as a separate podcast after the game that you have to subscribe to. So make sure you subscribe. That makes it easier as well, whether you're on iTunes or follow on Spotify, whatever you want to do. So thanks for listening. Thanks to all the great sponsors, deadsoxy.com and primeshrimp.com. Appreciate your support of our sponsors as well. And we'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 Podcast from Soonerscoop.com.